Introduce our presenters this morning. Rosie Whitehead is joining us and sharing an insight into neuroinclusion. Susan Jones is here with us from the Institute of Health and Social Care Management. Susan's going to be discussing wellbeing and to self-care. Alethea is with us, Alethea Mitsons from Care and Support West. Everybody knows Alethea. Hi, Alethea. And Flora Neville is going to be updating us on employment law. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Rosie, ask Rosie to come to the floor. I'm going to show your slides, aren't I, Rosie? Yeah,
okay. That's okay, thank you.
I'll let you introduce yourself while I just find your slides and just get going on it, okay?
Thank you. So as Karen's quite rightly said, I'm Rosie Whitehead and I work for a sort of UK-based charity called the Mason Foundation. We are a relatively young charity. We've only been sort of about since 2017, so we're an adolescent charity. And we have a number of programs. So the one that I want to talk to you about today is our Propel program and how that can support neuroinclusion within a workplace, but also support the employability skills of young people who either have a learning difference, so that might be a disability or sort of learning differences, or are neurodivergent. So thanks so much, Karen, for sharing the slides. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I work for the Mason Foundation. We're a national charity and our mission is to support vulnerable communities and individuals to live happier, healthier and more fulfilled lives. We support individuals to reach their own sort of full potential and thrive in life. And we take a real sort of person-centered approach in every single project that we manage. We don't come in and sort of do to communities. Everything we do is sort of co-designed and co-developed with the groups that we're working with. And yeah, so and because of that, there's a real sort of sustainability element. So a lot of programs we notice will sort of come in for 12 weeks and deliver something. We don't do that. So we will come in for a set amount of time. It's usually a year. And as part of the program, it's about embedding that sort of cultural change, either within a community, within a workplace, within a community group, so that those champions or mentors or whoever it is we're working with are sort of feel confident and empowered to sort of make those sort of sustainable societal changes towards neuroinclusion or physical activity, as I'll come on to. Next slide, please, Karen. So Propel came about through a strategic partnership with a college in Kent. So it's a specialist college that works with young people aged 18 to 25, all of whom have an EHCP, so they have an educational healthcare plan. We were doing a separate piece of work with the college. We were working with them to upskill some of their students to become community mile champions. So this is where they were sort of delivering accessible physical activity within the college environment. And as we were delivering this, we were asked to link everything, all the skills that these students were learning back to employability. And sort of, you know, showcasing that this is project management and this is confidence building and this is how you can showcase this on a CV and in an interview environment. And while we were doing this, we were talking to the careers lead at the college, and he, bless him, he works so hard and he's so frustrated because he works with these young people day in, day out, and he knows that they will be an absolute asset to any sort of sector, any employment opportunity that comes their way. But actually, when they leave college at 25, those skills go unutilised because employers don't give them a chance to get their foot in the door. And so he sort of set us a bit of a challenge and said, could we collaborate to design something to support workplaces so that actually they are more inclusive in their recruitment processes, they are more nurturing in their sort of workplace attitudes, and that these young people don't fall off that cliff. You know, they leave college and then there is a network of inclusive employment opportunities around them where they can really sort of thrive and reach their own full potential. So as I mentioned, we do this with a strengths-based approach, and we work both with schools, colleges and community youth settings, and predominantly within mainstream sectors. There are lots of projects already working with young people with EHCPs. So we tend to work within mainstream sort of schools and colleges, working with those students who feel like a bit of a round peg in a square hole. So it might be that they don't have a formal diagnosis or identification of being neurodivergent or having a learning disability. It could just be that the academic sort of system doesn't really work for them. That's not their learning style. And we will sort of give them a toolkit and their support staff around them a toolkit to sort of showcase their strengths and their amazing abilities. And then we also work with workplaces in a sort of micro community of inclusion, if you like, so very close to that setting. And we will provide them the same sort of skills tools. We can do assessments around the current neuroinclusion of the business. We can provide mentor training for some of the workforce who can become sort of one-to-one mentors for those young people. There's a whole host of things we can do with businesses. And then we introduce them to each other so that those businesses and workplaces can offer the young people a sort of a sterling opportunity for sort of vocational development, which can be work experience placements, it can be interview skills, it can be site visits. And that business then also has a potential sort of talent pool that they can draw on for entry level roles as moving forward, because they've already got people who've got that foot in the door. Next slide, please, Karen. Oh, the next slide.
Can you not see it?
I can see now.
Come up?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. It comes up really quickly on mine. Sorry, I do apologise.
No, all right. It's probably my terrible internet. I moved offices to go into a warmer room in the house, and I've not plugged my laptop in. I'm relying on Wi-Fi, so it's probably me.
All right.
So we know that 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodivergent. There's been some talk recently that that is probably more like 1 in 6. And we also know from a survey done in 2023 that only 4.8% of those with a learning difficulty or a disability are in paid employment. And that's the ones that are known to their local authority. So the real number could be much more stark than that. And we've really designed Propel to address this, because, you know, those young people, those individuals are our future workforce. So we need to provide them every opportunity to be able to showcase their sort of skills and talents at an early opportunity, so they have that confidence and self-belief to sort of, you know, be able to thrive. And then the next slide is a video that we had made sort of showcasing and inspiring people around sort of neurodivergent talent. Oof.
Can you hear it?
I can't.
Can anybody hear it?
Karen, when you go to do the sharing, there's an option which says include audio. When you go to your share screen, you might have to stop sharing and go to reshare.
Sorry. Say that again.
When you go to share.
Yeah. Share video.
When you go to it says share content, you say include sound, and you have to select that as an on option.
Oh, hang on a minute.
It's like a little slide bar.
Oh yeah, slide sign. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Include that and then start sharing.
Yeah, I'll go back.
I've learnt the hard way on that one.
Oh, have you?
Many a time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me start again. Okay, can you hear now? Yeah.
Thank you. So I would like to point out that we selected Elon Musk prior to, it's about 18 months ago, prior to the recent controversy surrounding him. But although, you know, don't like his politics, however, I think as somebody who thinks differently, he is quite inspiring in the way he thinks, not necessarily the beliefs he has. Just putting that in as a caveat. Next slide, please, Karen. So we as an organisation see people's strengths. We fully believe that neurodivergence individuals haven't achieved despite thinking differently, they've achieved because they think differently. And just as a sort of thing to mention about our team, we are a small team. There are 8 of us, and 6 of us are neurodivergent, and those who aren't, those who are neurotypical within our team, they have sort of experience within their own friends and family members. So this is something that we as an organisation feel incredibly passionately about, and something that we have lived experience of, and we try and bring that authenticity to every sort of programme and project that we run. So next slide, please, Karen. Okay, so our offer to workplaces. So as I mentioned, we are a charity. A lot of what we do is grant funded. We also have a corporate arm. So if anybody wants to sort of buy workshops and training away from grant funding, we can do that too. But we can offer comprehensive CPD accredited training programs and consultancy. Now, this is really something that we do through our grant funding. So we can provide our ambassador and mentor sort of training and workshops to workforce. These ambassadors and mentors are really the people who can cascade propel throughout a workforce, which really brings to life neuroinclusion and looks at how the business can adopt neuro-inclusive practices within its workforce. What tends to happen when this is sort of grant funded, we will work with that workplace alongside working with a number of sort of educational establishments, and that workplace will become one of those sort of mentor establishments with that either college or school. So it could be that workplace offers site visits. It could be that they offer sort of traditional work experience. It could be, we've recently worked with Royal Mail, and they've offered like a one-to-one mentoring system for which can be done online. So geographically, it doesn't matter too much. But for young people who are interested in a career in logistics, and they can sort of mentor them. I think they're sort of scheduling in once a month calls just to chat to that young person and help them sort of navigate that way into that industry. We can do webinars, workshops, conferences, e-modules. We have a whole sort of range of tools in our back pocket that we can use to cascade neuroinclusion within a workforce. It's really our aim to engage your whole workforce on the importance of neuroinclusion. And one thing that we do with our ambassadors and mentors is we will work with them. So once that workshop's done, once that training's done, we don't then go, oh, you're done now. Thanks very much. We very much have a so what factor. So we will work with those ambassadors and mentors for 6, 9, 12 months and work with them around how they can embed neuroinclusion in their business, but within their role. So we don't sort of look at somebody who might be very sort of operational, might be working on a shop floor and go, oh, you can influence HR policy. It's not about that. It's about how everybody as an individual can sort of inspire this cultural shift to inclusion, to neuroinclusion. We offer employers to provide vocational opportunities in collaboration with local education providers. So like I said, that's sort of creating those micro communities of inclusion. So this can be placements, workshops, site visits, mentoring, volunteering, and this really does sort of create that talent pool, as I mentioned. So we've worked with a number of businesses and education settings now where we've had students who have joined as a work experience placement. We've got one business over in Birmingham who have then taken one of those students on as a supported intern, and then they will sort of go on to have a full-time job within that business. They're just sort of learning the ropes during this internship. And we can also support recruitment of a diverse workplace. So we can help you create an ongoing recruitment pipeline through our partner organisation like Propel People. That's our corporate arm. We can offer sort of recruitment support. With that, we also have a talent pool of young people of our own that we can draw on. So if that is something that you're interested in, we can help there. One thing that's not mentioned on here, in fact, I don't think we sort of delivered it when we were creating this deck. We're currently working with a care home provider over in Worcester. and a local school, and we're working with some of those students within the local school, all of which are pupil premium, so low income, or are have a learning disability, so part of their sort of learning disability core student group. And they have worked with the dementia patients at this care home to design an accessible garden. So the students have run workshops with the patients at the care home, residents at the care home. They've created a garden plan. They then worked with us through the procurement process to get a contractor to come in and do some of the sort of path laying and things like that. We were able to get a contractor who was willing to do work experience with the students. So a few of the students were able to come and see how a path is created, understand so introducing them to the construction industry. We've got another core group of the students who are working with the activity coordinator in the care homes, gaining work experience from that. And then those young people, those students from sort of springtime, will be delivering physical activity sessions within the garden for the residents. And this is all sort of led by, they've got a wellbeing coordinator on site, and he's looking at things like armchair Tai Chi and armchair yoga. We've also got a connection with the local nursery, and they've been sort of bringing some of the nursery students in to do story time. So it's all sort of centred around this community garden that's been grant funded. So we were able to secure grant funding to deliver it. So it's intergenerational, upskilling students, and it's sort of bringing a real quality of life to those residents at the care home. So that's just a sort of example of some of the projects that go a little bit outside the box. But again, we're always looking for partners. So if you're interested in something like that, then please do drop me an email and I will see what we can do. Next slide, please, Karen. So Propel, we think and we know is a win-win situation on so many levels. We know that it gives businesses financial success because you have better staff retention, you have a competitive edge when it comes to the job market. People like inclusive businesses, people like working in inclusive workplaces, and it can also sort of tap into a larger customer base. Once the word gets out that you are a neuro-inclusive business, then you know it holds weight. We know that inclusive workforces within inclusive businesses have a happier workforce, and they have increased morale and productivity. There is I don't have my notes with me, but there was a study done, I think back in 2020, where it's like inclusive workforces are 25% more productive than their counterparts, which, you know, if I have a 25% increase in productivity, I have a really good day. So, you know, we know that's a great thing. And it increases the employment rates for individuals with learning disabilities and those who are neurodivergent, helping them to lead independent and fulfilled lives, which not only helps the individual with their self-confidence, it also helps the economy because they are earning and contributing to the local and sort of national economy. And I think that's it. The next slide, the end slide. Yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for listening to me today. I will pop my email address, because that one is a very generic one, in the chat. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you wanted to get in touch afterwards, I'm happy to schedule a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. That was it's really interesting. Amazing. I was going to ask you about care homes, but you actually you actually mentioned it, so that's great. Does anybody have? I'm going to stop sharing unless anybody wants the QR code. I'll stop sharing now, and then we can come back in. I don't think there's anything in the chat. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Rosie? I think it's quite amazing that number of people. I mean, 1 in 7, 1.4 billion. There's astonishing figures, aren't they? Astonishing.
Yeah.
So if anybody's really interested in sort of, I mean, I can see the opportunity, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity for adult social care to sort of engage and tap into the resources that are available. So if they came to you, you would help them sort of with the grant funding, because as we know, social care funding is a massive thing at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. So we are very good, although we are small, we are very good at making things happen. So what we always try and do is, if there is a business or a school that is interested, we will work to get funding to make sure that that happens. Funders really like it when you've got partners already in place, because otherwise it's a fairly sort of scattergun approach. So sort of just saying, oh, we're going to go and work here and we don't have any connections yet. So yes, if you are interested as a sort of workplace, or if you wanted to do one of those sort of more bespoke projects, working with directly with young people within a sort of workplace setting, drop me an email. We'll have a chat. Talk to me. We have I say a central team. Her name is Deborah, and she's very good at finding those opportunities, sort of geographically and aligned to those sort of priorities. We can design what we want the program to look like. We can go out and find the partners. The only thing is with that is we can't guarantee it's going to happen quickly. So, for example, we secured some funding on Friday, which was fantastic, to deliver a program in Solihull. Brilliant, really exciting, but we did apply for that in August. So it doesn't always happen quickly, but we are very by hook or by crook, we do make something happen. So if you are interested in partnering, drop me an email and I will always endeavour to make it work.
Does the funding come from government, or is it local businesses, or is
combination of many things? So we do have some sort of local authority funding. We also have some central sort of government funding, which comes from Sport England. So that really props up our community impact programs where we're using physical activity as a vehicle. So the work that I was mentioning in the care home in Worcester, that is part funded by Sport England, because we're training up some of the students to be more physically active and to encourage physical activity within that sort of older adult with dementia demographic, which is one of Sport England's core priorities. That being said, we also are really good. We've got really good links with the construction industry, and large-scale construction projects, they always need to demonstrate social value. So we have got lots of partners with construction. We've got lots of construction partners, and if they're going in for a large tender, we can go in as a social value partner and say, as part of this tender, if they're successful, we will deliver this project. And then we can also provide sort of really detailed social impact reports with sort of a social value return on investment information and everything that lots of local authorities and national government like to see. So, yeah.
I can see huge value for engaging with social care providers. I mean, most of the care homes have got lovely gardens, and to sort of, they're always struggling with sort of how to sort of keep those gardens up to scratch, and building sort of summer houses and all sorts of things could be sort of introduced. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I don't. Oh, is that your email? I can see in the chat.
That is my email.
Yeah,
yes. So
okay.
If anybody wants to reach out to me sort of outside of here, drop me that email and I will get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I think I've seen Susan join us while we were. Yeah. So I will, without further ado, introduce Susan Jones. Susan, are you?
I
Are
am.
you there?
I'm here. Can
Yeah,
you see
okay.
me? First of all, Rosie, can I just say it sounds absolutely fabulous, and I've got a newsletter going out on Saturday, so I would love to know, because this is definitely of interest. Obviously, we have care associations up and down the country. I know that they are really interested in developing this type of program for their people. So anything that you could send to me, point me in the right direction, then I'm happy to promote. So,
brilliant. I will send that across to you, so no worries.
Okay, lovely. So just introduce myself first of all. So I'm Sue Jones, Director of Social Care for the Institute of Health and Social Care Management. And as you are Care Association members, then you and your teams have completely free access to our institute. So today I'm just going to run through some slides, and really it actually links into what Rosie was saying, because when you're trying to look after teams, then it's really important that you are inclusive, but it's also important to look after yourselves as well as leaders. So today is just a very short session on that. So I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, coming through.
Okay, I just need to go to. So can everybody see that
Yes.
on presentation view? Lovely.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll just give you a little bit of background, first of all, as to who we are. So yeah, we are the Institute of Health and Social Care Management. We were the Institute of Healthcare Management, but we changed to Health and Social Care back in 2020. And that was because we absolutely believe that health and social care need to be working together. So that was a conscious decision. So we have been around since 1902. As you can see, there's a couple of pictures there. There's a black and white picture looking very formal and not very diverse, I have to say. But we've got now where we've got lots of interaction. The workshops are very interactive, they're very inclusive, and people have a lot of fun when they come and attend those workshops as well. We also have online workshops, lots of them. Again, they're available to you all at no additional cost. They are there for you. So we've got around 8,000 members. As you see, we've got lots of different types of members as well, from students to CEOs and everything in between. And our focus is absolutely to support and encourage the professional development of our members. You will also have the opportunity to take part in our special interest groups and network at events, power hours, workshops, etc. So that's us. So today, and what we are absolutely trying to do, and what we do, is really promote good leadership within health and social care. And if it isn't compassionate, it isn't inclusive. So we really need to think about, we have to start with compassion. And if we don't start with compassion, then it's very difficult to build a culture that is inclusive. So today I'm going to talk about compassion, but self-compassion, because it's really important to take care of yourselves. So I'm using the 4 principles of Michael West. If anybody hasn't read Compassionate Leadership by Michael West, it's a really great read. I am actually piloting a compassionate leadership program that is specific to social care providers, because the book is brilliant, but it's very orientated to healthcare. So what I wanted to do was really bring that from a practical perspective. How do you apply that in social care? So you think of yourself as a leader. These are the 4 principles that Michael West goes through. And the first one is attending. And that is really, as far as self-compassion is concerned, is how do I listen and notice myself? So what are you, when you're thinking about, are you caring for yourself? What are the things that you're listening out for? What are the things that you would notice that would tell you that things aren't quite right? And sometimes this is really difficult to do, and it's really important. It's a fundamental part of a strategy, a well-being strategy for you. So what would that look like? Would it be that you're starting to hear a lot of negative voices that are going, the negative voices in your head, you know, that self voice that sits on your shoulder? Is it a fact that you're feeling a little bit anxious? Is it a fact that you are not sleeping well? These are all the things that if you listen and notice to yourself, then that would start to tell you, okay, what do I need to do? The next one is understanding. And this is about, how do you understand and navigate the challenges that you face? So what is it that, you know, you're noticing some things that are going wrong, and you're thinking to yourself, well, how do I actually understand what's going on? What is going on? Do I understand why it's going on? So that's all the understanding part. The empathizing is, how do I care for myself? Because it is so important to think, okay, putting yourself before people sometimes. You know, it's hard to be a leader of a organization, a leader of a team, but you do need to care for yourself, because if you don't care for yourself, you can't care for others. And then it's helping. What strategies am I developing that would allow me to help myself? What would give me that framework to enable me to do that? So something positive where you're moving forward with a situation. And certainly for myself, you know, I used to suffer from like a lot of other people, suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And once I started to really understand why that was happening and listen to the cues, I was then able to put those strategies in place that would enable me to overcome that, which I do really, really well now. But I need to start to notice what's actually going on in my head. And I notice them way down the line, you know, far before it's ever going to get to a point where I am feeling that anxious self. So this is really critical, how you support yourself and support your team as well, to understand and practice self-compassion. So I thought I'd go through just a couple of helpful slides, hopefully, that you'll look at. And for me, and again, this is just something from a personal perspective, you know, is that all our brains are full of chemicals, and we need to understand how those chemicals react with our brain, and those self-talk and those things that are going on in our brains are actually releasing those chemicals. But compassion, and again, this is what we're talking about, it is an absolute potent activator associated with happiness. So when we hug one another and when we are compassionate with ourselves and with each other, that really does promote that happiness and well-being. So when you think of how it feels to give a hug and receive a hug, you feel that warmth and that relaxation that goes on because it is those the chemicals within the brain that is actually activating those calming chemicals. And I'm going to expand further on that. There are other chemicals in our brains as well. And I'm just going to go round and just tell you about the positive chemicals that we have the capacity to release. We all have the capacity to release those. So we've got the dopamine, which is the reward chemical. So that's things like completing a task on time and you're pleased with it, eating food, doing self-care activities, celebrating those little wins. This is a good reward chemical. You've then got, we've just spoken about the oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So that's playing with a dog, with a child, holding hands, hugging family, giving compliments. Those are all things that would release the oxytocin. We've got serotonin, which is the mood stabilizer. So meditating, running, sun exposure, walking in nature, swimming and cycling. And then we've got the endorphin, the painkiller, which is the laughter, essential oils, watching comedy, dark chocolate and exercising. And it was certainly on this journey, you know, when I realized that I'm probably quite addicted to walking now, because I know that when I walk, it releases this lovely chemical called endorphin that it really does calm me down. It enables me to take care of myself. But we also have other chemicals, and we need to be aware of the other chemicals that go on in our brain. And they're there for good reason, and we need to understand that they do have a purpose. So adrenaline, this really helps you to react fast and strong. So we're talking about the fight and flight response. This is a real survival hormone. So in certain circumstances, that's absolutely brilliant. But cortisol, when you're constantly at that stress and you're releasing those adrenaline, then the cortisol kicks in, and that can have a real negative effect. Really great if you're doing it temporarily, you know, if you're having this chemical temporarily, because it gives you that heightened memory and attention. But you don't want to be doing that all the time. It's exhausting and it feels exhausting, and that's what leads to burnout. So if you think of that, your brain, and you think about the chemicals within your brain, it can really help you. So in terms of just giving you some examples of what that looks like, and this is about, you know, really thinking about that self-talk that's going on in your brain. Negative thought, I've never done it before. Well, changing it to, this is an opportunity to learn something new. You know, if you can't be bothered today, okay, I need a boost to motivate me. What can I do that would enable me to feel more motivated? If you're thinking it's too radical a change, we don't like change. We tend to resist change if we can. But then thinking it can could be good to do things differently. And then, you know, the last one, I've never done it before, I will enjoy this new task. There is a link there for anybody who would like to go and have a look, because there's some really good things, positive thinking, reducing stress and self-talk there. So I'm just going to go through some exercises, which I think is really good when you are feeling a little bit stressed. And it really helps if you've got team members that are also feeling a little bit stressed. What would that look like? What help and support can you provide for them? First of all, we've got the perspectives, and that's this is something that we do in our high performance leadership training, and it's seeing things from 3 different perspectives. And when you have a challenge, or if you've got a difficult situation and you don't know how to resolve that situation, it could be that somebody's come in to work. They've had a particularly bad conversation, perhaps with a resident or a customer or a family member, and they're really struggling to find a solution to that issue. They're really holding on to the angst that's within them. So when you do that, you see, first of all, you need to get them to talk about their perspective, and this is the first person perspective. So just get them to just talk about how they're feeling, what happened, what was, you know, what was the driving force behind that particular situation. And once they've done that, it's really moving them to the second chair. And sometimes it's really useful to be able to visualize this movement from one chair to another. So they're in the first chair, they're moving to the second chair, and then you say to them, okay, talk me through, how do you think the other person was feeling? What were they experiencing at the time? So if it's a family member that they've had this conversation with them, seeing it from their perspective, just get them to talk about it. And then once they've done that, you go into the third chair, which is the third perspective. And this is like an observer viewpoint. So you say to them, okay, you've got the 2 people in front of you. You've got this you here, and you've got the family member here. What would an observer say about that situation? And when you do that and you give people time to do that, it massively takes the emotion out of the situation, and it allows people to see things a little bit more clearly, which can really help when it comes to resolving conflict and stress. So that's the first exercise. The second exercise, which is something I really do practice when I am feeling a little bit stressed, is this meditative breathing technique. So you can see it's actually telling you what to do. So step 1 is inhale for 4 seconds through the nose. You hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds through the nose. And it's just all the mouth. You can do it either way. But just having that breathing technique, you will feel the chemicals in your brain being released, these positive chemicals in your brain being released. It is really powerful. So I'd encourage you to have a go at that. And then finally is affirmation. So if you've got yourself or a team member who is feeling down and feels a little bit out of control, practicing daily affirmations can really make that positive difference. Making time to do those very small exercises can have a positive impact. So there's a few daily reminders there. You know, the past cannot be changed, opinions don't define your reality. Things always get better with time, smiles are contagious, and then at the end you only fail if you quit. So that was a very short presentation. Has anybody got any thoughts or questions or observations from that?
There's nothing in the chat at the moment, but my goodness me, I've learned so much. Wow. Oh, Jessica.
Yeah, I thought that was really good and really helpful. And as someone who has, suffered with blood pressure, I know I've spoken about it before on here. That's really good and really helpful for people to think about and take on board and practice.
Yeah. Well, again, if you think, we are really open to adapt and flex any of our sessions. So if you're thinking that your staff team members would like a session on self-care and self-compassion, then we are very happy to run those for you. So yeah, we're very happy to flex and adapt. Things are hard at the moment. Things are really tough. So how do you cope in the face of adversity? How do you build that resilience within your teams? Can make such a difference, can't they? You know, and it's doing something for your team that will have the biggest impact.
Not only for the teams, is it? On a personal level, anybody who sort of can engage and go through this, it can help them in their own personal lives as well, with their family lives. And
Yeah.
there's a whole wealth of amazing things. I mean, and looking, I've made a note: dopamine, oxytocin, I didn't know that those. Obviously I knew dopamine, but the others, endorphins, I knew, but the other two I didn't. And then thinking about the other chemicals, I mean, gosh, you need to be a scientist.
And you know what? And it was really weird, and I can only do it from my own point of view. But because anxiety is an awful thing, isn't it? You know, it's not nice when you're feeling stressed and anxious. And the fact that I was able to feel that I can actually control this, because if I shift the chemicals, then I'm going to feel better and I can control it. And that for me was the most empowering thing. And people can control it. You know, it is what you do, and the actions that you have would be, can make the biggest difference.
Jessica, the slides, everything of the recording, and that will be on our website. So,
and I will share the slides.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, what I'll do is I'll just do a PDF copy now, and then I'll put them in the chat, and then you've got them.
Okay, that's very kind. What I will say, this is one of the benefits of being a member of Care and Support West, because as being a member, you automatically get a link to engage with any of the programs that Susan has mentioned. If you're not a member, I'm sorry, you can't have the link. But come and join us. No, I've made a note of the breathing exercise as well, Susan. I think I personally, I've got a situation at the moment with my older father. He is 92, and it's a very difficult situation at the moment. And I'm thinking I'm going to take all these things to him and just share with him. So for me,
that's a really good. And I know that my dad was 91, nearly 92 when he passed, and I actually went through the circle of influence with him. So, you know, the circle of control, circle of influence, you know, these are the things that he can control, and these are the things. And once I went through it with him, he was really, but that is just having the power to think that you can. There are still things you can control.
That's right. And there's still things that you have to let go as well. And you know, in our lives we have this situation. So Susan, that's been a fantastic, enlightening presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I will send over the information to you as well.
All right, thank you. That's lovely. Okay, well, that leads on nicely to Alicia.
Yeah.
Do you want me to show your slides, or are you going to?
No, I can share my slides. I was going to say, Sue, yeah, I think your graphics on the chemicals I was really good actually. I haven't seen those ones before, so they're brilliant, I think, and it is just puts it in perspective, like I said, and it is about compassion and how we look after ourselves and each other. So yeah, I'll just share a quick update on some of the local support that's also available. So I've been running a health and wellbeing support network now for probably nearly 2 years now. This network's been running. So currently, we've got 196 health and wellbeing champions for social care across Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire. And they're coming from currently about 113 different organisations across social care. So this network, like I said, it's free to join. I've put the link there, or the QR code if you'd like to join. So this piece of work came together when there was the Healthier Together Support Network, which was one of the 40 mental health hubs that the government funded during COVID. and this was also to reach out and support social care. So through this project, I ran a specific grant project for the first year and just over a year and a half. And that was a funded piece where I had some bespoke budget to support those champions. But from that, I think the feedback and the success of the champion network has been so great that I'm really keen just to keep going with it. So although my role is very much now reduced in terms of what we can deliver for the health and wellbeing champions, we've got all the resources that are still available. So I'm keen to continue the network beyond. Currently, we were due to be still March 25, but it looks like now we can continue beyond that again. So part of the network, if you sign up, then I'll have a quick short meeting with you and I will show you some of the toolkits that were developed. So initially these were put together as part of the initial project that I was running, but it brings together a guide for managers specifically, and also a health and wellbeing champion guide to support them in this role. And obviously being a champion is a volunteer role, and it is more about being a communicator. So unless you've got specific training, it's not sort of counselling or support. It is about being that person in your organisation who is championing health and wellbeing. And my minimum ask of a champion is just to share my one pager that I produce every month and I email out to all my champions. But the sky's the limit. I provide an email every month to all the champions with lots of resources. So I download a lot of the current themes that are coming up for the month ahead. And I usually share that email sort of halfway through a month. So that they've got that time to plan if there is something that they'd like to go above and beyond and have an additional event, have something for bringing the team together. And all supporting a certain event that's happening in the coming months. So those sort of 3 toolkits are available. They can then be personalised to your organisation. So there's sections that you can then adapt to make it unique to your care organisation. And I've also got some template surveys as well. So I think it's really important around health and wellbeing to understand from your teams, what's working well and where more support could be offered. So I've got, again, some templates ready to go. So you've just got to do a very small piece of personalising it to your organisation. And that's an online feedback. It can also be a Word document, but the online forms are really, really working really well to get that response back from your colleagues. And then, like I said there's every month there's resources available to you. And I try and bring anything that I'm aware of, I like to promote to my champion network. So here's an example of the February one pager that goes out. And like I said, the champions then get access to a drive where they've got a specific calendar to help them plan for that month ahead. And then also for each of the main themes, I download all the resources that could be useful. So posters, different sheets of information, that guidance and support that you can then share. If you've got a health and wellbeing board in your organisation, it could just be a case of looking at different themes each month and publishing it or sharing it electronically, however you communicate with your teams. And there's also a WhatsApp group for the champion network, so that's a great place to share ideas, what's working well. And I have got a new additional champion support piece of work coming soon. So very shortly, I'll be launching that to the champion network. So just also to make you aware, I'm also working with 2 different teams around health checks, which are free for social care teams. So if you're based within Bristol and South Gloucestershire with a BS postcode, then I'm working with a lady called Claire Dudley who's based at MBT in Southmead, and her team will be offering to come out during March to visit care sites and deliver sort of a 20-minute confidential personal health check to your staff team members. So the ask is that you have a private room available for those sessions to take place between 8:30 and 3:30 on the allocated day, and they're ideally looking for a minimum of 10 staff to see up to a maximum of 14 for that day. And then we're asking basically that you just help communicate so you can help with your staff to book up those slots, and then just share the information. And basically these are equivalent to the 40-year health checks that the GPs were offering a little time ago. So they'll be looking at blood pressure, heart rate, cholesterol levels, oxygen saturations, ECGs, BMI checks. And they'll also be having those conversations around sort of any health concerns that somebody may have. And then after those meetings, they will automatically upload that data to your GP system. So that's why it has to be a BS postcode with Bristol or Somerset, because they have access to those GP records, and then they can log the data that they find and have those conversations and signposting with you for anything that they feel would help support that person's health. So that's one of the versions. And the other one is in North Somerset. So they're doing a slightly different offer. This is an age-related one between 30 to 74, and this is a cardiovascular disease health check. So lots of similarities to the other offer, but they are doing it all themselves. So if that is just to email the Health workplaces at northsomerset.gov.uk, and they will automatically then work with you to book those visits to your care sites. So yeah, just really keen just to share those offers so people know they're available. Like I said, the other one, do use the expression of interest sign up form. So that comes to me, and I'm then coordinating that with the team based at Southmead to book those visits. And the North Somerset, if you're based in that locality, then please just email them directly and they will work with you to get those appointments booked. And if you have got any questions, then please, here's a couple of my emails. I've got my personal, my work one, alethea.myson@CareSport but also then a health and wellbeing one, which is the one that I'm now using for the larger mailites for all my champion networks. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
Wow, a lot going on, a lot of really good stuff going on for everybody. There's no questions in the chat, I don't think. Does anybody want to ask Alethea while she's here? She's going to whiz off in a moment.
I am. I'll put some links in the chat as well, just so people have got the sign up links if they're not already part of my network or they'd like to put forward the expression of interest. So I'll just pop that in the chat, Karen, and then I will unfortunately have to shoot off to another provider forum, I'm afraid.
That's fine.
So I'm sorry to miss the end of this.
There's a lot of really good stuff on today's workshop. So yeah, and it's all about us, isn't it? It's all about sort of looking after ourselves. And so thank you very much, Alethea, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Okay, so I think yeah, we've got Flora on with us, haven't we? Now I know she was coming a little bit later. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Laura. Flora, thank you very much. Over to you.
Amazing, thank you. And I would just echo, I've been listening intently what everybody else has been talking about there, and some really interesting and stuff. And whilst I'm here to talk about employment law, I would also echo that, health and well-being is such a massive part of employing people nowadays. It's not just about law, and health and well-being come into every aspect of employment law and health and safety, 100%. So it's really important to get it right and absolutely look after ourselves as employers, as employees, all the rest of it. It definitely is key. So yeah, and thank you for asking us to join you. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through just 25 minutes of a kind of whistle-stop tour of what's happening, because there's obviously a lot going on right now in employment law with the new government. Then there is the new Employment Rights Bill, and we are talking about that as being the biggest upgrade to the workers' rights in a generation. Now, the bill has set out over 28 key employment reforms, over 158 pages of legislation, of which we will skim the top of. And what I really want to talk about today is the kind of 10 key changes in the bill to be aware of. I really want just to talk to you today, just to have these things on your radar. Now, not every single one of them will have a huge impact on your business, but you need to have an awareness of them as an employer, and some of them absolutely will have a big impact. So, and it's thinking, it's forward planning. These are not all live, they're not here, they're not right now. A lot of this we're talking is actually going to be, the implementation is most likely to be into 2026, but you need to have it on your agenda, because it's, how is it going to impact your business? What changes do you need to make? What do you need to be thinking about is the key thing. So we're going to talk through these 10 key changes in the bill, and just have a look at each one individually. Jump ahead straight away. Unfair dismissal then, rights from day one. Now, the Labour government believe that the 2-year wait to earn unfair dismissal rights acts as a deterrent to people moving jobs, which in turn has a detrimental impact on productivity. So they are removing the 2-year service requirement. making the right to claim unfair dismissal effective from day one. So they're removing that requirement. So they do point out that this will not prevent fair dismissals, and employers will still be able to exercise probationary periods with fair and transparent rules and processes. So and they're talking about this 9 months as being the probationary period. Now, again, we've not got the details exactly, but what I would say is it's more important than ever for employers to handle conduct and capability problems correctly from the very start of employment, and make sure that the right things are in there. Now, I don't doubt you will have a conduct policy, you'll have a capability policy, no doubts about that. But I think now is important to start looking at those, just making sure they're sufficient, they're what they need to be, they're appropriate, because quite often we have policies and things and they're quite outdated. So I think now is the point to review these and just look at what you've got in place and think, is this going to be sufficient? As an employee, you've always got to remember you may have to demonstrate that you have been fair and reasonable. That's the key thing, okay? So how do you demonstrate that? And remember, and hopefully, you never ever end up in a tribunal with somebody. That's worst case scenario. But if that does happen, a tribunal is set up to protect the employee or the applicant. They are not set up to protect you, the employer. So you need to have the right things in place. You've got to have the foundations, the fundamentals, all the rest of it there to help you protect yourself and to provide you with the evidence to support, to show that you have been a fair and reasonable employer and you've done what you should have done and all the rest of it. So I am a wee bit of a broken record saying documentation, everybody signing it, keep an audit trail, that kind of thing. But it is from your point of view, the protection that you might need as an employer. Saying you've done something doesn't stand up. That's the reality of it. You need to be able to prove what you have done and provide evidence to show of, policies, processes, training, risk assessments, all that kind of stuff's got to be there. So just make sure that you've got it all in place. Looking now at your probationary periods as well. So the test for a fair dismissal is likely to be modified where what they're saying is the date the employment ends falls within either the probationary period. Now that needs to be clarified, and we think that's looking like between 3 and 9 months, or within 3 months immediately after the end of that period if the employer has given notice of termination within the probationary period, and the reason for the dismissal must either relate to the employee's conduct or the capability or qualifications for performing the work for which they have been employed, or their continued employment would contravene a statutory duty or restriction, or for some other substantial reason. So again, it's, you've got to justify what you are doing. And again, you don't hopefully want to be in this scenario very often, but what I would say is get the things in place so that if it does come up then, or you have got a situation or challenging scenario or whatever, then you are the person in control of this. Look at your probationary periods now. I'm sure you tell people they're going on a 3 months, 6 months, whatever probationary period. Have a look at that. Just make sure it's right for your business, but also make sure you're telling people that the expectation of the probationary period and what happens if they do not meet your expectations of the probationary period, what happens then. So again, please make sure you are communicating that with people, and that should be from the start actually. So it should be in your contract or terms and conditions about your expectations and criteria surrounding the probationary period. So please do have a look at the probationary period and how it works, and is it going to continue to work for you. Tighter restrictions on 0 hours contracts. They have basically said they want to end what they are calling one-side flexibility and ban exploitative 0 hours contracts. Yeah. So basically, what is that saying? They're not banning all 0 hours contracts, just what they would term to be an exploitative 0 hours contract. And the idea is making sure that everyone has the right to have a contract that reflects the number of hours they regularly work based on a 12-week reference period. I think we need more detail on this as well. And there is they're reassuring people, saying you will still be able to offer fixed term contracts, and where the 0 hours contract works for both employee and employer, then there can be a reason to continue that. But you need to, again, just be looking at how do you employ people at the moment. If you use 0 hours contracts, how are they going to work going forward? Where are they going to sit within this? Are they going to be deemed as being exploitative, or is there going to be a better way to look at this? And I know there will in care there are a lot of people on 0 hours contracts. It's got to work for what I would say here. And again, I would certainly be looking across the board at everybody within the organisation at the moment, and looking at what type of contract they're on, and just deciding, is that going to work for everybody going forward? Because what you don't want is to not take notice of it and then be in a situation that causes a bigger problem. Number 3 is giving reasonable notice on shifts. So basically, under the new bill, this applies to 0 hours workers and variable hours workers where shifts fall outside of their normal indicated working time. You must give a reasonable notice of shift or shifts. And we're not, again, we're waiting on a wee bit of detail on this, but they have said it'll be no more than 7 days. Also given reasonable notice if there is a change or cancellation of a shift. And if you don't give reasonable notice, then compensation will be payable for the cancelled or shortened shift. That should be no more than the wages would have earned during that shift, which is a significant cost in any business. So again, I think this is going to have a fairly big impact, particularly in the care sector, where you rely heavily on a degree of flexibility, and where changes are often communicated at the sort of last minute, the 11th hour. So think about it again, and unfortunately, and going forward, the flexibility of last minute changes is likely to come at some kind of cost. It's trying to, reduce that as much as it possibly can be. And again, looking at how shifts work at the moment, what the patterns are, what happens when it is, when you do have sort of last minute changing things, because inevitably with, absence and, family lives and things like that, these kind of things are going to happen. But if we can have some kind of structure around that and sort of things in place, then I think, again, once we know the details of this, certainly something to be thinking about. Pay reforms, the SSP expansion. So what they are saying is the SSP is going to be extended to all workers. Yeah, so that's removing the lower earnings limit, and SSP rate will be percentage of weekly earnings if this is lower than the standard rate. The 3-day waiting period is going to be removed, meaning the SSP will be payable from the first day of sickness absence. I think the key thing here is looking at return to work interview as well. It really highlights the importance of it. Now, again, you will all do things differently. I don't doubt you do return to work interviews, but do you do them from after 1 day of absence, or is it 1 week, 2 weeks, a month? Everybody will be different. What I would say is after 1 day of absence is best practice. For a number of reasons, and I could spend an hour or two talking about the return to work interview and the importance of it, but it's a very good tool in the business, and from a health and safety point of view, you should be doing it after every instance of absence, because basically, I might have turned up for work, does not mean to say I'm fit to be there. You need to establish whether I'm fit to be there or not, because I am there on, from a health and safety point of view, as your responsibility. Because if I'm not fit to be at work and there is an accident or an incident or something happens, health and safety become involved, I can guarantee they're coming looking for you. So please make sure, and it only needs to be a few minutes. It doesn't need to be a very lengthy process, but you are asking questions like, why were you off? Are you taking medication? Are you fit to be back at work? Can we make any adjustments in the workplace? And all this ties into what we've just been talking about, health and well-being and looking after people and all the rest of it. A lot of people do come back, and presenteeism is a huge issue currently in the UK when people are at work and they're not actually fit to be there because they feel they should be, or you can't cope without them, or they can't afford to be off, or for whatever reason, and there are numerous. But presenteeism is almost a bigger problem than absenteeism sometimes. So you need to be confident that somebody is fit to be there, and that's why your return to work interview is really important, because if they're not fit to be there, then you need to, or it might mean that it highlights any adjustments that you may need to make in the role for them for the next few days or the week, or whatever it might be, depends on what's wrong. And also just making sure that you're also giving people the opportunity to have a conversation, because it might be that because you're looking at a pattern of absenteeism and you're thinking, hang on a minute, somebody's off every third Monday of the month, or that shift pattern or that shift group or whatever it might be, when actually by having that conversation you identify that there's harassment, there's bullying, there's victimization, there's whatever it might be going on, there's other challenges at home with somebody that they by having that conversation and opening up that communication, it's amazing what you can find out. And I think, again, back to the whole you care about people and you want them to be there, having the conversation and people genuinely knowing that somebody cares why they were off, and that you're putting the best you can in for them back in, and having them in the workplace in the safest environment for everybody. So it's really important to do that return to work interview, document it, keep a copy of it, all the rest of it. And I think never more so now, since there is the SSP expansion. I think that is going to have an impact. The adult social care negotiating body, I'm sure that you are familiar with this, and they are going to create this body to set pay and conditions for adult social care staff in England, should the Employment Rights Bill become law. So this would include the employer and union representatives. Its prescribed terms and conditions, including pay, once that's obviously approved by the government, would have to be followed by providers in adult social care. So again, we're waiting on some of the finer details and things for that, but it obviously will have an impact. Number 5 then is changes to parental, paternity and bereavement leave. So currently, somebody must work for an employer for 26 weeks before they're eligible for 2 weeks government funded paternity leave, and for 1 year before they're eligible for 18 weeks of unpaid paternal leave per child or adopted child up to the child's 18th birthday. So the bill removes the existing service requirements for paternity and paternal leave, making these into day one rights. So people will be entitled to them from day one, no longer 26 weeks of employment. The bill also proposes to remove the restrictions for paternity leave to be taken before shared parental leave. So under the current law, if shared paternal leave has been taken, employees lose their right to take any paternity leave they've not already taken. By removing the restrictions, employees will have more flexibility to take advantage of both types of leave, so paternal and paternity leave. The bereavement leave as well, so there's currently no statutory bereavement leave, except for parents who lose a child under the age of 18, and they are entitled to 2 weeks of government-funded paternal bereavement leave. So the new bill is proposing to introduce a new right for at least 1 week's bereavement leave. So they're extending that out beyond just parents. Then now it potentially details like eligibility and the exact time of length of leave and stuff, or entitlement to pay or whatever are, again, we've got those to come in the regulations. But it's just that the paternal bereavement leave will not change from 2 weeks, but there will be this new right to extension of other bereavement leave, which is likely to be 1 week. And as I say, we'll know more with regard to eligibility and things as they introduce it. Number 6 then is flexible working. Obviously, lots has gone on around flexible working over, there were changes last year, and then they are proposing further changes as well. So there has been no change proposed to the existing 8 grounds on which an employer can refuse flexible working. So there was discussion that that might change. So that hasn't changed. So basically, you know, this is if somebody has approached you about flexible working, again, they can do that. You can refuse flexible working, but what I would say is you need to be very, very careful on the grounds that you do that on. So there are 8 existing grounds, basically are business justifiable reasons on which you can refuse flexible working. Now remember, flexible working isn't just working from home as well. It's, you know, shortened hours, compressed hours, working round about care and responsibilities, whatever it might be. So it's not just about home working. You can refuse a request. However, you can only refuse a request if you believe it should be refused on one of the 8 grounds that have been set out, and it is reasonable for you to refuse it on those grounds. You would need to state the grounds for refusal and explain why it's reasonable to refuse the application. And the Secretary of State may specify particular steps to be followed when consulting with an employee before refusing a request. Okay, so and if you need to know those 8 grounds, you can look them up. They're pretty, but they're basically business justifiable reasons. Is the reality. It's not because you don't think somebody deserves it or you don't like them or whatever else. There are 8 reasons on which you can refuse, and you can refuse. Just make sure if you are refusing a flexible working request, you're doing it properly, following the right process, documenting, etc. along the way. Again, it's one of these, you know, if you need assistance on how to do that, then by all means just ask. The Fair Work Agency, so basically this is the introduction or creation and introduction of this new single labour market enforcement body, and the idea of bringing all labour market enforcement within one organisation. So a bit like the Health and Safety Executive, similar to them, and bringing it all into one agency or one body, which they are going to call the Fair Work Agency. Now, this body can be given the authority to require people to provide information, and its enforcement officers will have the power to enter business premises and have access to and retain documents, computer files, that kind of thing. So basically what they're coming in to do is making sure you're employing people properly. Yeah. So again, a review of, I talked earlier about reviewing contracts and what's set up and what's in place. This just highlights the importance of that and thinking, okay, is this right? Does this work? And, you know, could it be seen as being a problem? And also not just about what you've got written down, but what the actual custom and practice is in the business as well. So have a look at your contracts, have a look at your handbooks. What training do you provide? You know, what policies are in place, all that kind of thing, just to make sure that you've got the right things there for everybody at the end of the day. And as an employer, you need to ensure you've got the right things in place, because if you haven't communicated, you haven't told people what the expectations are, what the policies of the business are, etc., you can't expect them to comply. And they need to be, you know, crystal clear on what they are. But again, it's back to setting some ground rules as well, which everybody needs ground rules, but also ties in, you know, with the health and well-being thing, that what's in place to protect people, what's in place to support people. You know, we talked earlier, and they talked earlier about a lot of the diversity that, you know, and that's what you need to make a really good team. Is you need you know, lots of diversity, and different people, different types of people, different people that think differently. But again, you know, looking at your equality policies and things like that, it really highlights the importance of that, to ensure that everybody is being looked after and everybody's being treated fairly, and the policies and things you have in place don't discriminate against anybody as well, because historically, you know, policies have in some cases might have been there for many years and actually don't work, or are potentially discriminative. So all these things need to be reviewed at the moment, is what I would say. Okay, number 8 then, fire and rehire. The government effectively is looking to ban this practice unless there is genuinely no alternative for the business and a proper process must be followed. It's not, I mean, it is last resort, and I really would steer away from it, and hopefully, you know, it's not something that MD will ever have to consider. But what I would say is just, you know, steer well clear is the reality of it. And if for any reason it is your only resort in the business, then please do take advice as to how to do it properly. But hopefully that's never something that's been your radar, but it is part of the bill, so we you know, it's important to mention it. The Worker Protection Act, this came in October in 2024, and basically this was a new sort of more proactive approach or a duty that you as an employer need to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment occurring. The breach incurs up to 25% increase in damages, and the intention is to shift the focus on preventing harassment happening in the first place. Yeah, so it's about this prevention, putting things in place to prevent it happening, not just dealing with it as and when it happens. And the Equality and Human Rights Commission updated their guidance includes preventing sexual harassment by third parties. Now, the bill is changing this slightly and adding to it as well. So the duty on you as the employer is to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. So not just to prevent it, not just take reasonable steps to prevent it, but to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. Now, and they extending the current law as well concerning all types of harassment to include harassment by third parties. So if I came in tomorrow and said, okay, show me what you've got in place to prevent sexual harassment and harassment by third parties, what have you got? Yeah, so you need to have a look at that and you know, decide, is what we've got sufficient? Is it reasonable? Could I demonstrate that I have been fair and reasonable? Yeah. So you need to be able to demonstrate that you have taken reasonable steps and you have met your obligation to prevent sexual harassment. So things like carrying out a risk assessment is absolutely key. Publishing harassment plans or policies. Do you have them? I'm sure you do. But again, are they up to date? Are they sufficient? Are they what you need, given thinking about the new legislation and guidelines that's coming in? Steps relating to reporting sexual harassment. If I feel I've been sexually harassed, do I know what to do about that? Do I know what steps to take? Do I know what to, you know, who to go to? How supported do I feel about doing that as well? What is the culture, you know, surrounding it? Is it, we'll just get on with it, it's part of the job, or is it recognised as, you know, again, what is different for every different, you know, what is banter to somebody is highly offensive to somebody else potentially. So again, it's about, you know, respecting each other and, you know, having zero tolerance policies, all that kind of thing, and communicating that throughout. So again, it's back to that kind of culture stuff, looking after, you know, well-being and everything ties directly into that. And steps relating to the handling of complaints as well. If somebody goes to a supervisor, a line manager, whatever, and complains of sexual harassment or harassment by a third party. So that can be a delivery driver, it can be a client, a customer, a visitor, a service user, a contractor. You know, everybody really comes into that area. So again, how do your team, you know, your supervisors, line managers, whoever, how do they handle that? Do they know what to do? Do they take it seriously as well? And I think, again, that goes back to a lot of the training aspect of that kind of thing as well. And number 4 there makes a disclosure that sexual harassment has occurred, is occurring, or is likely to occur as a protected disclosure under the whistleblowing rules. So again, just making sure that, you know, a review of what you've got in place, and is it going to be sufficient going forward. Well, number 10 then is union reforms, and there's a significant part of the bill is devoted to the trade union reforms, and you know, worth having a look at it. it's things like repealing restrictive trade union legislation. So basically what they're saying is all the legislation that has been put in place by the Conservative government over the last 14 years is being repealed. That it is a new requirement as well for you as an employer to provide all workers with a written statement of their right to join a trade union. So, that again is, and there's again criteria around about that. You've got to reissue it and to existing employees and things like that as well. It's granting union officials the right to access workplaces for meetings, representing, recruiting, organising workers, and relaxing the rules on ballots, changing the requirements for a successful recognition ballot to a majority of the actual votes cast to be in favour rather than at least 40% of the whole group eligible to vote. So, and simplification of ballot for industrial action. So there are a few, again, things that worth having a look at. Just being up to speed on what's happening is the key thing. Basically, you do need to be ready for anything, and we appreciate how tricky that can be. You try to run a business, there's lots of other things going on in it as well, and you have lots of other regulations to comply with, and that's where we can help. We have a deep understanding of the care industry. We have real in-house expertise that know what they're doing by law and from a care point of view as well. So we want to help you to get the changes right. And there's lots of benefits to some of the things that are coming in. The key thing is as well, it's avoiding the pitfalls, and that's what we can help you do. So if you do want to have anything else, further chat, or you want to find out more about how we can help and all the rest of it, don't hesitate to pop us a wee email there on the seminars@citation.co.uk, and we can organise a chat or have a discussion with you about what your needs are or whatever you want. Then more than happy to do that for you, no problem at all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Flora. Wow, so much to take on board, isn't there? Goodness me. Does anybody have any questions, first of all? Anybody raising their hand? I can't see anybody. It's big changes, isn't there? Lots of coming down the track. I've got a question, actually, Flora. I don't know whether... I know you said that some of these changes aren't happening just yet. Do you have any idea about the parental leave rights? Do you know when that's actually happening? Is that coming into play sooner than later?
The unfair dismissal one is likely to be October of this year. All the rest, they are looking probably, we're talking April 2026 onwards. Again, we're waiting on the actual dates and things, but the bill is sitting. There'll be consultation. There's various processes that it needs to go through before it's completely finalised. But we're talking about April 2026, which the reality of that is that's only 14 months away, so it's not that far away. 2026 sounds like, oh, that's next year, we don't need to worry. But the reality of when you actually start to need to make changes and things like that, then it'll be here before we know it.
It will come around very, very quickly. When you think it's almost February now, and did Christmas happen 5 minutes ago?
Precisely, I know.
But there's some really good stuff that you've shared with everybody, and I've made lots of notes. And gosh, I would like to, for the population listening and who will listen later, I can recommend connecting with Citation. Clearly, Flora knows her stuff, and they are there to help you. So, and also, Citation is a corporate partner of Care & Support West. So it goes to show we welcome their wealth of knowledge. Thank you very, very much for today's presentation to our presenters. If there's no more questions, I'm going to stop sharing, otherwise I will forget to do that. Stop sharing the recording. So she says, stop sharing. Right, okay.